Hey everybody, Sujal Patel here from Mailshake. We got the Sales Practitioner series. I'm super pumped to talk to Julie Mann today from Upland Software, and we're going to talk about how to stay in touch with warm leads who aren't ready to buy. Julie, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So first of all, can you give the group kind of an overview on your background, and then we'll jump into questions.
Yeah, so I have been a sales practitioner for the last 12 years, and most recently was in a head of sales role or VP role at Upland, then Optimizely, then Spreadfast, and HomeAway VRBO. So my passion that I found throughout that process is creating best-in-class SDR and inside sales organizations, and nurture is a big part of that. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Love this. And selfishly, I want to know all this because I want to implement this because I think everybody could do a better job at staying in touch with those warm leads. And it's just money on the table, right? Or potentially money on the table.
Totally. It
All
is
right.
definitely a undervalued skill, and sometimes it's deprioritized on how to really run an effective nurture program from the sales side of things when most people focus on marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess, first question is, how do you see inside reps kind of splitting their time between, new prospects and nurturing existing ones?
Yep. So in a typical organization, you're going to see about 20% of rep time spent on following up with new inbound opportunities, new leads that come through. And then 65% of their time is focused on outbound efforts. So prospecting, sourcing, and then executing messages. And then only about 15% of their time is spent on two-way engagement with interested people or nurture. So pretty low. And I do think that should switch a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. That seems like the opposite, right? Like I almost see that. So what is the ideal time or
Yeah,
split? I mean.
so the reason why I think it's the opposite is that people spend a lot of time focusing on the people that are coming through as hand raisers, those prospects, and their goal is to get them quickly to that qualified opportunity stage and through the sales cycle. But once, let's say you're an SDR that goes over the fence, it's let's spend time just finding new people and outbounding. And so what really should happen in an ideal world, 60% of your time as an SDR or inside sales rep should be on following up with inbound leads and nurturing leads that you've had two-way engagements. And then the other 40% can be focused more on outbound initiatives.
Yeah, love it. I mean, think about it from a just practical standpoint. As you say this, why not spend more time on leads that are closer to buying than cold leads, right? And sales folks seem to solve, in my experience, their revenue gaps or targets with brute force rather than looking at what they've got right in front of them.
Yeah. And a lot of people want to do the right thing and say, all right, this prospect fell out of the sales cycle, so I'm going to make a task and put a note on my calendar to follow up in 6 months. That's the classic thing we've all seen, but it's not an organized process to be able to efficiently execute messages that scale to the right group of people.
Yeah, totally makes sense. So I guess, like jumping into kind of like the how to nurture leads and that whole spiel, what's the goal of a nurture campaign? Let's talk about kind of the objective.
Yep. So I think of it as having two goals. The first goal is simply collecting the right group of buyers and prospects that meet your ideal customer profile. Just being able to, isolate those needles from the haystack. I had a mentor who used to always say, we spend so much time finding the needle from the haystack. And then once it's in the sales cycle, it falls out somewhere and we just go back to trying to find new needles instead of collecting this isolated pile of needles that we can kind of come back to. So the first thing is collecting the right group of buyers and learning everything you can learn. You can get competitive information from them. You can get ideas on, how to build your tools and products and services even better, right? And you're really close to the pain point just by saying, this is what the right group of people that we've had meaningful engagement looks like. The second piece is obviously to get them to buy. And so what you don't want to do is to take these people that you had a great, meaningful conversation with and just shove blanket messaging down their throat. What you want to do is be able to identify them, put them into a fuel line, that you can revisit at a very specific cadence and only be delivering value added material that helps them in their job today.
So I want to jump into something we probably haven't talked about is like, what is value? How do you define that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Everybody's going to define it differently. How I think about it is, if you have an asset that you can offer somebody that gives them some benchmarks, some information that helps them think about, that aligns with the problem they're trying to solve today, that adds value. If there's a relationship that you can make with somebody to say, hey, I know you guys last time we talked, we're really focusing on this specific problem and we're spitballing a bunch of ideas. I have a connection over here that can help you. That's adding value. If it's inviting them to some kind of a webinar or event that really genuinely pertains to the problem they're trying to solve, that's value. Value is not, hey, can I get 10 minutes on your calendar? Value is not give me information and it's a one-sided relationship. Value is delivering things that really do relate to the conversation that you had with them.
Love it. Love it. That is great. I think it's so simple that like, hey, don't ask more questions. Don't ask more from the lead. You've already asked enough. Now it's time to give. And even things like blog posts, webinars, when they're not relevant, they're not value, right? But you can easily just like, everyone always quickly is like, oh, I'm going to send them a content piece or I'm going to send them this. Well, is it relevant? And so it's an extra step. So I guess the next question is around like finding that right balance without being too annoying, too frequent, and then maybe turning that warm lead into a warm, upset lead or turning it too cold. Yeah. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so there is a cadence, I think. I think there's two things to think about. There's a cadence that you can execute that pretty much will make sense for the type of nurture you're running. So in my head, there's three types of nurture. There's a closed loss nurture. Everyone is typically familiar. At some point, this was a qualified opportunity. It fell out of the sales cycle, and we want to revisit that. And there's a 3-month, 6-month, 9-month, and 12-month message that these people can receive. Now, as you see value, you want to make sure that you're also distributing that. But there can be a initial thank you for having this, for going through these conversations with us. I really appreciate it. You can establish a connection with them that, hey, I'm going to stay close to you, not because I'm trying to sell you, but if I see something that's going to be valuable to you, knowing now a little bit more about your business, I'm going to send it your way. You can start those messages and then you can continue to iterate on them. And as you go through the year, the messages become a little bit more dire and a little bit more needy maybe because, hey, you've been with this vendor for 9 months. I want to know, is it working well or not, right? Is there something I can do? And then the second type of nurture is the almost opportunity is what I call it. So, most of the criteria was met. You are talking to the right person. They do have the authority. There's a need there, but timing or budget may be off right now. You want to keep those people close. And with those people, it's a lot of the thought leadership, building a relationship where they see you as an expert in advising. And then I would say lastly, and that cadence can be a little bit more frequent. It doesn't just have to be the 3, 6, 9, 12. And then lastly, there is focusing on people who were hand raisers that you haven't had that meaningful conversation with and trying to get the meaningful conversation. So they downloaded a bunch of forms and attended webinars and they're high activity sort of MQL, or if they're a hand raiser, like a demo request or a contact us form, how do you send them information? You do it in a more frequent kind of cadence, but still tailored to, their vertical, their persona, and the pain points that you've seen others have.
Love it. Love it. I like the different paths you kind of identified. It makes it very simple and easy to follow. So, and we'll rehash this in the show notes below. So don't worry and just make sure you skip back to this part of the video and rewatch it a few times. So really kind of just closing out, I want to talk about kind of when the prospect is ready to buy and this is a warm lead turning into a sale. How do you even with those 3 nurture sequences or more, how do you even know?
Yep. So there's two ways. The only way to really know and know for sure is to see a spike in activity, tons of activity coming through on your website. We had a Marketo hit list at Optimizely where we would see Marketo activity on these, prospects that we cared about most that were in our nurture. And, we called it a hit list. It's like, once you know that activity is there, you go attack them with a little bit next level, more aggressive kind of messaging. So that will give you a good indicator. If you have a tool, a predictive analytics tool like Sixth Sense or something, that's a great way of knowing. But a lot of times you don't know. And the answer is you just don't know. So what you do is, you make sure that you're always adding this sort of thought leadership, this value as this expert so that you're creating that. And every once in a while you won't see that activity and somebody just happens to be reconsidering something, and because you have made it easy for them to communicate with you, you've been respectful of their time, and you've been such a value-added resource along the way, they will come circle back even if you're not in their first or second choice.
Love it. Love it. I love that hit list and looking for the spur of activity or spike in activity. So Julie, where can, so first of all, thank you so much for joining. I know I'm going to go rewatch this. I'm going to send the uncut version to our sales team right now. It's the secret advantage I get to do in these interviews. But where can people go to learn more or kind of get in touch with their questions?
Yeah, if you have questions, you can find me on LinkedIn, Julie Mann. And I'm always open to connecting, virtual connection for now, but in the future, hopefully more if you're in Austin, and just talking about strategies and tips and learning in a mutual way.